Cipollone.
Very much, Mr. Chair. Now, Mr. Chair, I want to touch on something that... Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I just want to touch on something that Gareth Hughes said before, and that was with respect to commending the Labour government for taking interest off the student loans in 2005. Prior to that, I have to say, as someone that had a student loan, I didn't see it go down very much until that happened. So I do need to mention that. Now, I want to do what... yes, I did graduate, Mr. Garrett. I did graduate. Now, Mr. Chair, I want to do something along the lines of what Marion Street was doing and just look at aspects of this bill in relation to the public comments that have been made recently on the student loan scheme and the National Party's history with respect to the tertiary education system in general, but I will do my best to stick to the bill, Mr. Chair. Now, Mr. Chair, we have discussed Labour's support for the aspect of this bill which will mean that those that are from territories of New Zealand, being Niue, Cook Islands and Tokelau, and also the Ross dependency, being able to have interest-free student loans, Mr. Chair. Now, one of the concerns I have, or one of the things that's just come up in discussions with colleagues, is if these students who we do support getting interest-free loans when they return to their homelands, whether it be Niue, Cook Islands, Tokelau or the Ross dependency, if they do have interest-free loans, Mr. Chair, what we want to know is whether or not the government has taken into consideration any additional mechanisms, and I guess this is directed to the Minister. It's a question I have for the Minister. It would be nice if he was listening to my question. My question is, has the government taken into consideration any additional measures or mechanisms that may need to be put into place to ensure that those students who return to the Cook Islands, Niue or Tokelau or the Ross dependency, don't know who lives there, but that those students who return there actually have some sort of mechanism for paying back their student loan. That's one thing that we don't actually see in the existing bill at this stage, and I have asked my colleagues who are on the Select Committee, and they are unsure about that one too, Mr. Chair, so we would like a response from the Minister with regards to that. We totally recognise that it is important that those who wish to return to those places that are territories of New Zealand have the opportunity to do so that they can contribute to their people, to their communities, and but we do need to make sure that there are some measures in place, because if they go for a lifetime and they've left this country with a $40,000 student loan, then we would like to see perhaps that it be paid back. So that's one aspect that we've covered. Now, Mr. Chair, I just want to talk about that too in relation to what we've seen recently with public comments on the student loan scheme. Now, this bill is basically saying that we support our students who are from territories of New Zealand, and that we provide them with the same opportunities, provisions with regards to interest-free loans that those who live in New Zealand actually get. But, Mr. Chair, what I'm concerned about is with respect to the public comments that have been made, which allude to the fact that this government may go down the track of making student loans less accessible, which will unfortunately affect those who are marginalised or those who are underrepresented in our tertiary education system as it stands. Now, the reason I'm raising it, Mr. Chair, is whilst on one hand it looks like we are supporting Pacific students from territories of New Zealand to actually be able to go back to their countries and contribute there, but then on the other hand, it does look, Mr. Chair, like at the same time this national government is going down the track of perhaps limiting the opportunities for students who need to access student loans for their ability to do that. So that is a very valid concern, Mr. Chair, and I'm sure that even though we're in committee stages discussing the bill, that public comments that have been made recently on the student loan scheme also need to be taken into consideration, as in some ways there does feel like there's a sense of contradiction with respect to what this bill is saying and with respect to what is being said publicly. Now, Mr. Chair, another aspect of this bill when we look through Part 1 is the fact that there will be late payment penalties put into place for those who aren't using the correct tax codes, and for those for some it may be perceived that they are trying to rort the system in some way or another with respect to actually paying back their student loans when they get out into employment. Now, Mr. Chair, we do support that, but we do ask, Mr Chair,
Kelvin Davis.